all you wonderful quilters. I'm glad to have you back with us today. I'm Cathy at True Cotton Company in Carmel, Indiana. Look in the description box if you have any questions about the location of the store or want a link to the website and check out what we have in stock currently. Glad to have you back with part 3 of our beginning quilt series. We've worked hard on pressing the cutting and then piecing the blocks together last week. Today we're going to take these blocks now and set them up. At the end of the last video you saw I had the 2 different layout options. So now is our time where we decide. There's the long way, which is what I made in the blue one, and that's really nice for a long table or if you want a piece of art on your wall that's a nice long vertical. But I'm going to do this little table topper here. This will fit better on a little table or round table, anything, a small square table. So this is going to be the way we do it. Now I do want to see that I've got my pieces where they're pressed opposite on the seams. That way we get good nesting, and it's just right here where we're going to nest together. These are solid, so we don't have to nest at this point. So we're going to work now on this part, and this is a way where I like to pin, and I'm going to pin one edge so that it matches, and I like this other edge. And now normally I wouldn't pin so close. I'm going to go with the middle, and then I'm going to hit those points where they nest together, because while typically I wouldn't do something so close together, I really want to make sure I've got good nesting of those seams. And then get a pin there so we keep that good nesting together. We want to do the same thing here. Really nest those together. Make sure we get good matching. We've been spending a lot of time doing this accurate 1/4 inch seam. And now's the time. We're going to sew the top together, and then once we get this top sewn together, we'll talk about how I like to do borders, which I think is going to be the good part to learn in today's video. And like I said, we'd use a 1/4 inch seam here. What we've been using the whole time we're sewing. And just come along. Getting those pins out of the way. I don't like to sew over my pins. I know some will, but the risk of breaking a needle becomes a little stronger if you do that, and I don't like taking that risk. I've on a couple occasions had the needle break and shoot off towards me, and I would prefer to not experience that anymore. Now here you can see I've got my border strips out. I was pressing those to get ready for that. And now here you can just pick either side. You'll press the opposite one the other way. So this one you can go in either way. We'll just let that press, and we can let that cool down while we sew the other 2 together. We're going to do the same thing here. And I pin just the same way. I've got all my needles not in the handy pin cushion, but sitting off to the side here. Do right at the start and the end. And I always like to start with those, make sure I've got my piece where it's going to line up at the beginning and the end. and then I'll hit the middle. Then I go for the seams that I need to nest together now. Just to help keep all our hard work lining up nicely. And this is good reason to leave your pin cushion a little closer to your machine so you can put these in a pin cushion and you don't pick them up off of your machine like I just did. So I'm going to move this back where I like it to be when I'm not quilting a piece. I just keep my pin cushion right there nested in. And now coming along with that 1/4 inch. And just come along. And you don't need to force the fabric through while you're stitching. The machine, the feed dogs will pull it through. We just try to keep it lined up on that 1/4 inch. And that's really the goal we have. And you can see how quickly that sews. Now this one gets ironed. We can put this one back over here. And now we do this one. And I just like to set that seam and then use my fingers kind of dancing along here to push everything out and make sure it's going the direction I like. Really using the weight and the heat of the iron to press that. Try not to do too much pushing on anything. We've been working hard to get those straight lines when we sewed the pieces opposite like we showed in the last video. So today we just want to get everything sewn together using the same technique. So I want to make sure those seams are going opposite of each other. And here, since we're working with identical pieces, you could flip anything around. And now here with the long pieces, let me bring my pin cushion over. I do things the same way when I do the long seams in the pieces. Make sure I got the ends together, and then I'm going to do the beginning. And here I'm going to hit this middle, and this is where things nest together. So make sure I've got good nesting. And then go to the halfway point, make sure you're nice and lined up. And I'll hit this other side, the halfway point. And it doesn't have to be exact. I don't have to measure right in half, but just do it. And then I do go with those kind of 1/4 units now, that way. As I'm working with longer strips, I like to make sure I'm pinned every few inches, that way it stays together, and all I really have to work on is making sure I'm doing a good accurate 1/4 inch. And now when I'm doing the longer seams in a quilt, this is a place where I will back stitch a little. We've got a lot coming together here, and when we put the border on, we will be going over all those points. So it's not necessary to back stitch. It's just a habit that I have and try to do. Because as you get into bigger quilts, larger than this one, the weight can, as it's off the edge of the table can start to get heavy and start pulling on those seams. Here's the one we want to line up, so just feel that. We got over that one. Now we're going to keep coming along. We're going to get to the end, and I'll do a little back stitch there as well. Just like that, we have got our top sewn together. We'll do one last bit of pressing. This, and I'll just do it the same way. I set those seams, make sure everything's laying the way I want it to, and then get the iron on here. We got our beautiful table topper has come together. Now I am going to do a border. You don't have to do a border on every quilt, but I like the way the green frames around. I think with this one I really like the way that looks, putting the green around it. So just along that edge. And so what I like to do for borders is I do like to cut them to size. So I like to take a measurement right here. I can see I'm at 24.5 inches, because 2 foot's 24.5, and I'll take 3 measurements to see where I'm at. And we can see we're right at that, about 24.5. So I'm gonna cut 2 of these to be 24.5 inches. And commonly with this, I will use the lines on the ruler or on the mat. I'll cut off the little salvage end. And I do know I'm working with this dark. And I'm working with an 1.5 inch strip. And cut the salvage end off, and then I'll line that right up on 0. And then get this out. And I know I want 24.5. And so I'll use the 1/2 inch line on my ruler and line that right up on the 24. Make sure I've got things lined up across the bottom. And then we can see we're right at that 24.5. Make sure you're lined up along the way. Make that cut. And then I can go ahead and cut the other one the same way. Get the salvage end off. And then line right up on the 0. Let me get this piece out of the way right now. Like I said, we're using that 1.5 inch strip. line that up along there, and then I use that 1/2 inch mark on the ruler lined right up on the 24 for 24.5, and make a quick cut. Now putting the border on, I do it the same way as I do the regular part. We're going to pin right at the beginning and the end, and then through the middle hit those quarter parts and get this all together. And we're coming right along this edge. And you don't have a lot of seams on this edge that we have to worry about. Thankfully on this whole quilt along the edges, this other side will have a little bit more. And now we want to get this out where it's laying real straight and get our middle part. And then we're going to hit the middle of each side. And then since I'm a big pinner, I go ahead and throw it right in between those. And for me, just a little bit of an extra insurance policy. That in, and we do our same 1/4 inch sewing the whole way along. And here again, as I'm doing the borders, let me move my pincushion over closer. Do that little bit of back stitching here. Along. And you can just take your time with these long stretches. We're not in any kind of race at this point. We can take our time and enjoy. Make sure we're having fun and not stressed. There may be a point you're at a retreat or something where you're doing a race to see who can finish a quilt top first, but typically that's not the situation we're under. Along, let's do a little back stitching. And we'll take this over. I'll press out towards the borders on all of these. And just set that seam like I always do. Now this, and you can just sew the border on and cut it. Measuring it the way we've done it gives you a less chance of getting a wavy border. You get a straighter border if you take those 3 numbers and kind of average them out and then just sew that right along the edge. So I'm going to go ahead and sew the other side on just like we did this one, pinning the same way, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to do the longer sides, okay? Alright, you can see I've got the other side sewed on. So we just got 2 more sides left. And I do believe I'm going to do some measuring. But we're at 26.5. Which makes sense. We've got 1 inch added to each side. Now I can use 3 1.5 inch strips to do this border, but to do that I'm going to have to sew the 2 pieces that I trimmed off for this together, and then that'll let me get a 25 inch, and then I just need 1 more strip. Or you could have 4 strips and then you don't have to do this little extra bit of sewing. It's completely, I mean, either way. There's not a lot of rules. I'm giving you a lot of tips during this series, but these are not hard, fast rules. And certainly, while you're watching this, if you have good tips to share, please leave those down in the comments for people. I want this to be a great community, a friendly sharing of tips and suggestions, and let us all just be the best quilters we can be. And there's so many ways to do things. I have the way I like, and everybody may have little differences. Alright, so 26.5 is what I'm working with. Let me go ahead and not cut into my quilt top I've been working on. I need to grab this, and I want to line it up and just trim off that salvage edge. And I know this whole time it's been this dark green on this navy blue. This is at home. I had one of these blue mats, and I eventually, because I love using navy blue, it is one of my favorite colors to work with. And oh, as I've been getting older, it's been harder and harder to see the contrast. I don't remember a few years ago that being such an issue. But as I am getting a little bit older, I had to get a mat that had a light and a dark side on it so I could flip it over. So I'm lining the 1/2 inch up right along the 26, so I get 26.5. And we're going to put that on. And I pin. I'm sure by now you all know the routine. I do those edges, the middle, and fill in. Put these lines up here. And come down here. Now we're getting right in that middle. And then I hit the halfway point in the block. And do the halfway point here. And like I said, on these long pieces. And I'll check, because we got some seams that can flip up here, as I know I'm sending it through this way. There's not a lot of seams in this piece, but we do have these little bit extras. And then I want to throw one here. This one should be okay because the machine, it'll slide right that way. Come here. Get this. And this is going to be fun to see this piece all come together. I've been thinking about it for so many months now. I'm glad to finally be making it. Machine sounding there. Let me take a look at this. Okay, that seems good. Let's try this again. That sounds like it's doing what I want. Just gently move that along. The feed dogs will do all the work. And just feed this through. We're really just trying to keep it in position. And just like that, we have got this long border on. Back to the ironing board. Setting that seam. And just peeling back. I do love how it's looking. I think that green border around the edge is just really setting it off nicely. We're gonna now cut this last piece that we've sewn together to 26.5 inches, and I will pin the border on the same way. Do the pinning. And so we will work on that. We'll be back shortly and I'll show you this all put together. Alright, you can see here the table topper all finished. I think it looks absolutely beautiful. Now I do want to talk about one change that I've made between here, these two. And I love both of them, but one thing I didn't like on this one is I did a 2.5 inch border, so it finishes at 2 inches, and all the strips were 1.5. And I just haven't liked that it was a little wider. It's a small little thing, it wasn't enough for me to rip it all apart. But I thought for the pattern, I'm going with the 1.5, keeping everything the same size. And I do really like the way that looks. I think the nice consistency is beautiful. But if you do prefer a little wider border, do know that I used it and it's fine. But I liked the consistency of keeping all the strips the same. Well, I hope you're enjoying this beginning quilt series that we're putting together with me sharing all the tips and tricks that I know. Like I said earlier, if you have some tips and tricks you like, do leave those comments down below. That way we can know what you like to do. I hope you're having fun sewing this week. Be kind to yourself. Win that game of bob and chicken. And we'll see you back next week. Have a great day. Bye.